Hello, welcome back to Woodbeard Meets Makers. Today I am having a chat with the wonderfully multifaceted visual artist, Laura Heaney. I can't possibly do her work justice in audio format, so you'll just have to trust me. Check out the links in the show notes to see just how incredible her artwork is. Laura's hyper-realistic depictions and commentaries on things like nature, the environment, how we spend our time, the food we eat, and so much more are a must-see with your own eyes. And like I said, I can't do any of it justice. In our chat, we discuss how she became an artist and all the ups and downs that come along with making a full-time career out of it, as well as her musical chops and our mutual love of the movie Labyrinth. But before we get to the discussion, I want to take a quick second to tell you about a really great project that Laura, my wife Brian, and I are all a part of, alongside so many great makers and builders and small business owners doing great things across our city of Hamilton, Ontario. Local photographer Ian Pettigrew created Handmade Hamilton last year, which was a book of photos he took showcasing artisans from all across the city who practice traditional and non-mechanized trades. Well, he's back now with the second book called Homemade Hamilton, which not only showcases more great artisans in Hamilton making stuff, but also the great people simply doing amazing stuff in the community. It's an absolute honor for us to have been asked to be included in the book, and I cannot encourage you enough to go support him. There's a Kickstarter link in the show notes where you can pre-order your own copy of the book, which is the best way to support him. So please check it out when you have a sec and give Ian some love for this. It's very well deserved. So, with all that said, now it's time for the chat with Laura. I hope you enjoy listening to this as much as I did making it. Here is Laura Heaney. The worst part is starting these things. I'm always like,
it's like in 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, right? I was like, how did these start? I don't know. Well, anyways, I'll just say thank you for joining me, chatting with me.
Thanks for having me.
Big fan of your work, so this is cool.
Thank you.
It's always nice to chat with you. How, right off the top, what's your comfort level with talking about yourself?
Pretty comfortable. I feel like my family, we are maybe oversharers. So
Okay.
sometimes Paul's like, you don't need to tell them all of the details. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a good point.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that comes natural. That's
Yeah.
good. So I've called this Woodbeard Meets Makers, but full disclosure for anyone listening, you and I have met several times.
Yes.
Do you want to tell the story of how we know each other?
Sure. So Paul, who I just mentioned, and it's really funny. He used to do a podcast with his mom called Drinks with Mom podcast. And I would always say to them, so you know how you just mentioned like Karen or whomever? I'm like, nobody knows who that is except for you guys.
Yeah.
And here I am being like, so Paul did this, blah, blah, blah. Paul's my husband. And you guys used to work together.
We did.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and then during the pandemic, we were some of those people who left Toronto and moved to Hamilton. And you were very helpful in facilitating that and suggested the neighborhood we currently live in. And now we are pseudo neighbors. So, yeah.
I love how you use helpful and suggested. I was just constantly berating Paul. Move to Crown Point. Move to Crown Point. It's so nice here.
It was really nice because, I mean, my family, my mom's from Hamilton originally. And so I know Hamilton pretty well. I've always visited my family here. But I'm really happy you suggested Hamilton because I think it might have been weird if I was like, let's move to Hamilton, be really close to my family and move further from yours. And so it was like almost nice to have that third party influence, which was really nice.
Yeah, for sure. I realized when just this morning, I don't think I've mentioned in any of these podcasts yet that I'm based in Hamilton, Ontario. So
okay, yeah.
For anyone listening, we're in Hamilton. It's
Hamilton,
great.
Ontario.
It's great. All right. So a few quick rapid fire getting to know you questions.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite color?
Ooh, I think it lands in royal blue. I'm pretty sure that's my favorite. But basically all the jewel tones. I love jewel tones. Like anything like a deep, rich, vibrant color, I'm into it.
Yeah.
So Yeah.
Nice. Favorite food?
Ooh. Oh God, that's a really hard one. I really like food. So most foods.
Nice.
I really like the seasonality of food. So I get
Oh
really
yeah.
excited at different times. Like right now it's August, so it's peach, tomato, corn, like all local to Ontario veggies. I am
Yep.
such a fan. But then in like within the next month, we're going to be into harvest season here, and you're going to get like your apples and your squash and your like all this kind of amazing fall food, and I get
Yep.
obsessed with that too. So anyway, I really like food. I really like fresh produce. So
Nice. Do you have a favorite movie?
Labyrinth.
Nice.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. That's definitely one of mine as well.
Yeah,
It's a classic.
such a classic. I used to rent
Yeah.
it for all of my birthdays.
Same.
Um,
Yep. Labyrinth and Rad were the two movies I had to
oh,
have on my birthday.
I haven't seen Rad.
Oh, it is, as the name implies, rad.
Okay,
It's so
it's
good. It's a
going on the list.
1986 BMX movie, and
Oh,
it was
okay, cool.
filmed in Cochrane, Alberta. It's so
Really?
great.
Oh my
So
God.
great.
Never
Yeah.
even heard of it. Okay, I gotta
Okay.
check that
All
out.
right. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
literally writing it down so I don't forget.
Nice. Good, good. It's so good. And last one, favorite band, or you could go with music genre if narrowing down to band is too specific or difficult.
Ooh, okay. So this is gonna be like a bit of a wild card, but I am a huge Benny Goodman fan. Like Sing
Oh,
Sing Sing, probably one of my favorite songs ever. It's big band. I love it. It's from the Chips Ahoy commercial, so there's also cookies associated with it.
nice.
But in general, I don't know. I didn't grow up playing the saxophone. When you start playing instruments in school, about grade 7, I
Hmm.
ended up with the alto saxophone and I became slightly obsessed with like big band jazz and all that kind of stuff. So
Amazing.
yeah, I it like gets me every time. We were actually just listening to a Benny Goodman album last night while we were eating dinner. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, top of mind too.
Perfect. Very cool.
Mhm.
Um, all right. So into the maker stuff.
Yes.
The question I thought was going to be very simple, but so far has not been for anyone. What do you make?
Ooh, so I am a visual artist.
Hmm.
I call myself a multidisciplinary visual artist because I work with many different mediums. But I specialize in hyper realistic drawings.
Right.
Yeah.
They're incredible.
Oh, thank you.
Um, do you feel that your art either fits into a particular genre, or do you feel the need to fit into a particular genre to be successful?
Yes. Great question. And I had to write it down so I could. I have notes.
Nice.
Um, so that's a really interesting question because it's actually one that has plagued me for years.
Yeah.
And so Paul, my husband, the aforementioned husband,
Uh-huh.
he and I actually met in art school. So we often have a lot of conversations around art practice and all this sort of stuff. And specifically, my art trajectory, essentially, like my career's trajectory, because
Hmm.
it's always good to have a sounding board. So he's been really, really helpful. Um, but I like some, if you look at my body of work, I actually have multiple series that I often work on, and they might be in totally different mediums, different subject matter. You might not even know it's the same artist who makes all the work.
Yeah.
But I have, so it's really tough to fit me into a genre because it's so multidisciplinary and so almost like separate streams of consciousness.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't really know that I fit in a genre, but I would say the thing that ties all my work together is I'm a huge history nerd. And so my minors in university were history and art history. My major was art. And then,
Hmm.
so I really like taking ideas, concepts, subject matter, techniques from moments in art history, predominantly Western art history, because that's what
Okay.
I studied, and bringing them into a more modern present day context, and maybe done with more accessible materials. For instance, like rather than doing an oil painting, I might do a colored pencil drawing, but it might look
Right.
quite similar and then just be kind of updated in like a modern context. So
Very cool.
yeah, the idea of genre is a tough one for me because I even struggle with defining what I do
Yeah.
sometimes. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of our, I mean, so far, all the artists I've talked to, all three of you on this so far have kind of struggled with the same thing, and many artists I've known in real life. That's like a
Yeah.
real thing that, like, what is my genre? Do I even need one? And
Yeah.
it's,
It's a funny thing too, because I think like we live in a society and the society kind of comes with certain, I don't know, idea or rules or guidelines, I guess you could say,
yeah.
especially if you are trying to obtain a certain measure of understood success.
Hmm.
And so the institution of art has been around for a very, very long time, and it kind of comes with those guidelines and rules and all these ideas. But it's also this is a thought I've played with a lot when I've been thinking about my genre, is that the institution of art, especially in Western culture, is very male dominated if you look back through it all the years.
Hmm.
And is it because a lot of people would say, oh, it's maybe wrong not to streamline your work. You need to be more it needs to look more similar so that everybody understands the moment they see it, it's a Laura Heaney. And sure,
Right.
that's not a bad idea, but it's an understood idea. But at the same
Yeah.
time, if you look back through history, a lot of women are very um, they're they do a lot of things. They're multifaceted. They're
Hmm.
always sort of juggling many things at the same time, and it's part of it's due to our biological nature as well. And so, is it actually a more female approach that I've just landed in this avenue where I'm a little, not all over the place, but constantly looking into new things and not streamlining?
Yeah. That's
I don't know.
awesome.
I don't know. It's an idea. I have no idea if it's right or wrong, but it's
Yeah.
something I think
It's
about.
an idea.
So, yeah.
Nice. Well, since you are so multifaceted, you got you're doing so many things. It
Hmm.
seems. What does your downtime look like? Do you
Ooh.
get much of it?
I like to read a lot.
Yeah.
I also really like I'm a big outdoors person. I just like being
Nice.
outside. It's kind of like
Yeah.
my zen time, if anything. I'm also
Yeah.
fairly active, so I try to get out, do a lot of my exercise outside, whether it's cycling, running, hiking, walking.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, basically just find me outside, just moving my body. And also I do think it's something I try to fit into my life because it's good for me, but also it really actually helps my art practice because I expend a lot of energy. Then I can sit there for hours on end afterwards and just be,
Yeah.
it's like my brain's on a totally different wavelength. It's very quiet after that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
mhm,
Nice. Do you find it like you said, your work requires a lot of sitting in one
mhm.
place, repetitive work? Do you find that like meditative and like calming, or is that like,
Very
how do you not
meditative.
have carpal tunnel is another question.
That's
Like,
actually a great question.
my
I don't have an
goodness.
answer to that. I'm quite actually
Uh,
surprised.
knock
I
on
know.
wood.
Knock on
Yeah.
wood. Yeah, no, yeah, no, it's very meditative for me. I really, really enjoy what I do. I also
Yeah.
tend to listen to a lot of audiobooks. Shout out to the Hamilton Public Library and their audiobook selection.
Oh, nice.
Um, I listen to some music sometimes, listen to podcasts sometimes, and basically it's almost like because I've sort of pre-planned my piece before I get into it. I kind of know the
Mm,
direction I'm heading in. So to get the level of detail that my drawings require, it just takes a lot of time.
yeah.
And so I put on these podcasts or audiobooks or music sometimes and just kind of like let the other half of my brain wander while
Yeah.
I'm drawing, which is
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of a lovely thing. I just listen to stories all day. It's kind of great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm similar with like woodworking. The one thing people hate, like historically, is sanding because it's
Mm,
just repetition. Like it can take hours depending on the project.
hmm
Obviously, there's like machines you can use to help, but I love just like having a piece of sandpaper and just spending a couple hours just doing that. And it's the same, like you get to see things kind of come to life and shaping, but
hmm
I can turn off the part of my brain that I was using the whole time to build this thing, because now I'm
Yeah.
just like honing it and fine tuning it. And then yeah, it's kind of like if I'm stuck at work and I go for a walk, it helps reset my brain. And then
Yeah.
when I come back, I'm like, I got it. I
hmm
find sanding is very much like that too. It's just I can shut off the part of my brain that's frustrated because I can't figure out this next step or something.
Oh, yeah,
And by the time I'm done, I've got a finished product and I've cleared that backlog in my head, which
for
is
sure. Oh,
pretty
yeah.
cool.
It's
Yeah.
really cool. It's kind of one of those, like, what do they call it? Like, almost like low key activity, like meditative, like washing dishes. It's a really
Yeah.
monotonous job, but you can just kind of let your brain do its thing. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Thankfully, I don't have to sand every single day like I do washing the dishes, but you
Yeah.
know, whatever. Do you remember, we'll go all the way back.
Okay.
Do you remember like the first time you made something, could be a piece of art or something, and it kind of clicked in your brain like, oh, this is what I want to do? And
Yes.
if so, do you remember the thing you made?
Yes. I actually, this is a very clear memory for me. I
Okay.
remember I was in grade 3 and I was working on a book report. I think it was like Berenstein Bears. Am I saying that right?
Nice.
Everybody says it's like one of those Mandela effects where you're
Yeah, it
saying it
totally
wrong.
is. I
I,
always said Berenstein
Me
Bears,
too.
but I think it's like Berenstein Bears or
Is it
something.
Berenstein? Okay.
Something
Yes.
like that. But
Whatever it
yeah,
is, I've never gotten
I
it right.
swear my memory is correct. Yeah.
Me too. I know, like
Yeah.
Berenstein Bears, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever they're
Yeah.
actually called. I was doing a book report on them, and you were one of the parts of the book report was to replicate the cover art.
Okay.
And I remember doing that in grade 3, and I had a moment of, oh, wow, this actually looks pretty good. And then you just kind of notice, like you look around the room or something, you're like, oh, no, this is actually pretty good. I think I'm doing all right with this. And I've always just loved creating. I'm one of those like weirdos who grew up and kind of like loved life, loved absolutely everything.
Nice.
Um, Sometimes I've had a couple of friends who are like, what are you taking? Like, it's just me. It's just how I came out. So, um, I'm a fairly naturally happy person. But
That's good.
yeah, so I've always been like I've kind of like dabbled in all sorts of things over time, music, art, athletics, like I don't know, school, everything.
Yeah.
But art has always been that one that's really, really stood out. And it was definitely
Nice.
that moment in grade 3 book reporting. So yeah.
Nice.
hmm
And that led you to go, so I assume you took art through school, like high school and stuff.
Yeah, so I didn't go into any specialized programs.
No.
I got a little bit lucky with this one because I was just in public school. I didn't
Hmm.
go to like an arts high school or anything. And it probably started in about grade 6. There was a parent volunteer who came into our school, and they were very artistic, and they came in and helped out in our art classes. And it really
Oh.
started to send me down a path of like, whoa, we take this to the next level. That's pretty cool. And then I remember in grade 8 graduation, like my elementary school grades were probably like a B, C average. Mostly I just wasn't trying that hard.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until closer to grade 8 where I was like, oh, I'm going into high school. Maybe I should try harder because then I can get into university and
Hmm.
higher education, stuff like that. But I remember I won the art award at my grade 8
Oh.
grad. And I was like, oh my God, I was up for an award at all? Like, really? It's like, oh, geez. And so I was like, oh,
Nice.
other people are noticing this too. Okay, that's really cool. And then went into high school and the head of the art department changed over in my grade 9 year. And the man that took over, shout out to Mr. Drew, he like took our art program to like an arts high school university kind of level. Like I was basically doing
Oh wow.
university art in high school, and it was the education I received was just so phenomenal. So yeah,
Nice.
I just got really lucky. Just happened to be in the right place, right time, surrounded
That's
by
amazing.
really cool people. And I went to high school with a very motivated group of kids who all were into the arts too. So again, not an
Great.
arts high school, but weirdly an arts high school.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Nice.
So I'd
So
say
then was
like,
university a breeze once you got there? Because you already
ooh, so that's a great question. University was an interesting place for me. I'm really, really happy I went. I'm really happy I have that education. And I think it
hmm
was really good for me to feel pretty uncomfortable for a number of years.
Nice.
I think what university really asked of me, and I got some of this in high school, but it like university pushed it to the next level where it became far more contemporary. The program that I was in
hmm
particular, was very, yeah, it was very contemporary, very thought driven, less skill driven, like less like technique driven, I should say.
Okay.
Um, and I'm far more of a technique person versus like a conceptual thought individual.
All right.
So to be asked to basically make a lot of art and my technical skill wasn't really the thing they were looking for was really
hmm
tough. That was really, really tough for me. But I think it was important to go through that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was kind of good to just be uncomfortable for a number of years and
Yeah.
to work through it. So
Nice.
mhm,
Yeah, it teaches you a lot going
it
through stuff
really
like
does.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It wasn't my
Uh,
favorite time, but also I think it was very important.
yeah.
Mhm.
Cool. So was coming out of university like was the goal to do art full time? Was that
I've always been a weirdly pragmatic person, and I
yeah.
was like, I actually wasn't going to go to university for art. I was looking into every other option. I was like, I'll be an architect. Music was on the board too.
Oh yeah.
Let's just pick all the arts.
Yeah.
Um, no, I was really looking into things that I like going to teachers college. That was actually probably what I was going to do after I went
Oh yeah.
to university for art was to become a teacher. Um, I was looking into all sorts of avenues, and I don't know how I got this lucky, but my parents sat me down at one point, my mom in particular, and said, "What do you actually want to do?" And I was like, she's like, "If you could choose absolutely anything, what would you do?" And I said, "Art. I would pick art." But I said,
Wow.
"What am I going to do? Have an art degree?" That sounds really, mom? Is that what you're suggesting? It's like, what job am I going to get with that? And she
Yeah.
said, honestly, do it. It's what you really want to do. Just do it. You're going to figure it out. I was like, okay, I'll go to
That's
teacher's
amazing.
college. No, it was really, really cool because it definitely, I probably wasn't going to pick art. I was just going to find another thing that I could snowball into a job essentially.
Right.
And went to university for art, was ready to go to teachers college, and then I did all my volunteer hours prior to kind of get a feel of it and decided it wasn't
Yeah.
for me. And then thought, oh shoot, now what am I gonna do? I've got an art degree. And now I just have a really eclectic resume because I've
Yeah.
hopped around a lot. Um, like most artists, I've spent a lot of time in the hospitality industry. And
hmm
but yeah, I think I pushed back on it a lot as a career. So it's like, this is not
Really?
sustainable. This is not doable. Like, how do people make enough money to do this? I tried a fair bit in my 20s, and I think I was working like 5 jobs so art could be my full-time career. And I was like, wait, I don't think I have time for art anymore. I don't think this is real. I say I'm an
Yeah.
artist, but I'm not making art. I'm doing other things. I worked in the ad agency for a little while. Yeah, I've done all sorts of stuff. And it's only recently that I've actually, in the last few years, I've actually been able to go more full time with it, which is really, really
Nice.
cool.
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of a dream come true. Like it happened in my late 30s essentially. And
Yeah.
at the time in my 20s, I was kind of saying, well, 30 is going to be my cutoff. If I can't make it work by then, got to figure something else out. And I actually took about a year and a half off when I got my ad agency job because I was like, I'm
Yeah.
moving on to other things. I'll be creative in this endeavor. And I was a little burnt out and I put art on the back burner. And after about a year and a half, I was like, I can't not draw. I got to do this. And so
Yeah.
it became more of a side hustle. Then slowly it just started snowballing more and more into a career. And I think the biggest thing about it that allowed it to happen was I became way more intentional about what I wanted to make, how I wanted to spend my time. Was I charging enough for my work? Was I like all
hmm
these things? I just learned to be way more intentional about my practice and it
That's
has
awesome.
kind of paid off. So yeah,
Yeah.
big learning curve, but I
Big
got there.
time.
Yeah.
Is there something you would say is like the one thing you've learned from all this that you wish you knew at the start?
Yeah, intentionality, man.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
big. If you're just doing it to be like, I'll be an artist and I'll do basically anything. If anybody wants a commission, I will draw anything for basically any price. You can't make a
Yeah.
living doing that. And
No.
I don't want to say I was quite like that, what I just described.
Yeah.
But there were moments like I definitely had a couple moments where I'd be working on a commission for somebody and I'd be drawing it and I'd be thinking, wait, how much did I charge for this? And how much time am I putting into this? And do I even like drawing this? Like, am I happy? I was like, I don't think I'm happy right now. What am I doing with myself? Like,
Yeah.
at some point, I still gotta like what I'm doing.
For sure. Yeah.
So, or just get another job. Like, if I don't want to like
Yeah.
what I'm doing, I might as well get paid for it. So,
Yeah.
you know? And I
True.
think I actually started listening to a few podcasts around that time, and a lot of them were about like kind of recentering, refiguring things out, coming, yeah, just like I said, becoming far more intentional, mindful, all those sorts of things. I
Yeah.
know they're big buzzwords these days, but yeah,
They're
it's kind of,
helpful. They
yeah,
matter. Yeah.
they really do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think I'm in that phase of like woodworking now because
Hmm.
I mean I'm on vacation from my day job, so I've
Yep.
been intentionally down here in the basement shop. Like I put together a workbench that the computer is currently sitting on, which makes me very happy. Um, but now I'm like, okay, I built this nice workbench. What am I going to build on it now?
Hmm.
I've now finally like I've never had one before. This is pretty cool, and I have the potential to make a lot of things on this. And now I'm like,
Hmm.
but what am I going to make? Because
Yeah, I think that's really tough too. When you leave school, you're always kind of more or less given a direction, and then you're
yeah,
out in the world and you're like, well, what do I do now? What
yeah,
art do I make? Does it have to be
yeah,
conceptual? Is it just like pretty drawings? Like what do I get to decide that? Oh, okay.
hmm
Interesting. So,
yeah. And I've always made things like little hobbyist things, like the book holders and things that
hmm,
have like utility to them. But I don't know. Now I'm like, maybe I want to make a piece of art. Maybe I want to
yeah,
give that a shot. I don't know. I have no idea. So try to figure
yeah.
that out. It's fun but daunting at the same time. So
Oh, yeah.
good.
Sometimes we just get paralyzed by our own possibilities. So,
Yes.
hmm,
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
there.
I get decision paralysis constantly. And just
Hmm.
this would be cool. And I start going down the road, and then I'm like, oh, that's a lot of steps. I'm gonna think about something else for a second, and then that leads to but here's this idea, and I start going down that road. So yes,
Yeah.
I have to get better at just sticking to the path and seeing where that leads. But
Yeah. I've also, it's really funny. I'm not a big sketchbook person, and I feel like that's a
no,
really weird thing as an artist because most artists
yeah,
always have sketchbooks. They're constantly filling them with ideas. I feel like it all
yeah,
happens in my brain. Like
really,
I never sketch it out. Um,
really.
yeah, very, very, unless I like actually need to combine some visual items and I just need to play around with it. I
hmm
never use a sketchbook. That was like my
Wow.
least favorite part of art class because it was always like
Really?
minimum 10% of your mark in school. I was like, shoot, I gotta fill a full sketchbook. Oh, so oh no.
Wow.
Meanwhile, every other art student is like, this is amazing. This is my best part of the class.
That's
Um,
like I
so
always hated when you had to write like an essay and they'd want to see your rough draft first. And I'd be like, I just wrote it. Like I
yeah,
didn't have a rough draft. I just wrote it.
yeah.
And so I would literally, the day I was supposed to hand it in, be sitting in the hallway, writing it out by hand and scribbling things out to make it look like a rough draft and
Hmm.
hand those in.
Oh, I
And
think I
yeah,
used to do that too, actually.
yeah,
Now that you mention that, I kind of forgot about that.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's really funny because I don't know. I also I take a lot of reference images because
Okay.
my work's so detail oriented. I don't draw out of my brain. Like if you ask me right now to draw, a car, it might look
Yeah.
really weird because I'm like, well, can I see a car? If I can see a car, I can draw it for you.
Yeah.
Um, so I find my reference images actually act more like my sketchbook than an
Okay.
actual sketchbook would. And sometimes I'll play around in Photoshop a bit, or I'll have an idea and I'm like, okay, this is pretty close. I'm just gonna tweak the colors or something, and then but I know enough color theory to kind of get away with that without
Yeah.
needing to do it on the computer first.
Wow.
So yeah, I find where was I going with this? Why did I bring this up? Shoot. Sketchbooks. Um, oh, I know what I was going to say. So the idea of like being paralyzed by your possibilities,
Yeah.
essentially, I've really learned to be kind of like kind to myself and let myself just take time if I need it to come up
Yeah.
with ideas and not be in constant production mode. I'm actually in the
Nice.
middle of a year, sort of not a year long break, but essentially I specifically wanted to take the majority of 2024 off from making work because I've just spent the last 2 or 3 years in heavy production mode. I've made a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
work in the last couple of years
Mm-hmm.
and it was really cool. But when you're that deep into it, you don't really have time to think about what you want to do, where you want to go, what you want to apply for, maybe admin
Yeah.
stuff that's kind of fallen by the wayside.
Right.
So this year in particular, I've on purpose stepped back from making art and I have been looking into like art residencies, maybe some grant work, maybe some also just thinking about what I'm doing,
Yeah.
spitballing stuff with Paul. And I have realized I'm like, oh, I want to stop this series that I've been working on for a number of years. It's just time to move on. It's been really fun, but let's move on to other things. I know I want
Mm-hmm.
to get into like learning to make my own inks, but like by
Oh,
foraging
cool.
things, become way
Oh,
more sustainable with my art materials. I also
yep.
know I think I just don't want to paint anymore. So I want to
Really?
go full tilt drawing. That's what I want to do with my time. I just like drawing. Drawing's my first love. I love
Yeah.
drawing. It just makes me
Yeah.
so happy. And it kind of feels like magic to me every time I draw because it looks real. To me, that's actually kind of
Yeah.
like what I love about it. You go through the
Yeah.
phases of you start out with a sketch, you're like really excited. You're like, oh, this is so great, so cool. And you get partway through, and you're like, oh, this is starting to look good. Then you get about three quarters in, you're like, this is the biggest piece of garbage I've ever seen in my life. I can't believe I'm working on this. Why am I spending all this time on this? And then you get to the end, you're like, it's magic. This is so amazing. So,
You're a magician.
yeah, I'm like, oh, look at that. It turned out exactly the way I wanted. I never doubted it.
Yeah. I never doubted for a second.
Never. My podcasts and audiobooks to my friends because it makes me stop thinking about it so much in the process.
Right. Right. Well, I
Uh,
can attest to the magic having seen your drawings in real life.
oh,
It is
thank you.
magic. It's pure magic. I'm just like, how? How? It blows my mind.
Yeah, an
It's
abundance of
incredible.
patience. I think that's the magic ingredient.
I think, yeah, that's one of the main things. I'm like, I could never even get a tenth of the way through this and be like, nope, bored.
Yeah. It's
But yeah,
yeah,
it's
but
amazing.
it's been kind of cool to just sit back and think about what I want to do and how I want to move forward. And I have a couple series that I want to work on that I think you'll actually start to see more of a stream. me streamline a bit more with my
Oh
work.
yeah.
You might say like, oh, that's a Laura Heaney, even though the subject matter is different. Like I'm going to do way more
Uh-huh.
colored pencil work moving forward.
Okay.
I will do some of the ink work as well. I want to still stay in that realm.
Yeah.
But maybe the colored pencil and the ink start to merge. I don't know. I haven't quite figured that out, but I just feel like by taking the time off, I've really had time to actually grow a lot, which is really kind of cool. So,
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah.
Very cool. How many collections have you done overall so far?
Oh, that's a good. Oh, geez. Okay. Good question. Good question. I don't know the answer off the top of my head.
Nice.
I Let me just start listing. I work on currently, I have Screen Time, which is everybody on
Mm-hmm.
their devices, colored pencil
Yep.
drawing series. I
Yep.
have my Observing Green series, which is like a pen and ink landscape one all about climate crisis. I
Mm-hmm.
have my Nauticus series that I've been working on. It's a painting series. That might be the one that's on the chopping block. Um,
Mm.
and then prior to that, I did a series called Food, which is
Yeah.
going to make a reemergence.
Nice.
And I
I like
have,
that one.
yeah, I really like, I feel like that one never
I like
quite
them
got
all,
enough
I should
time.
clarify, but yeah.
That one's like near and dear to my heart. And I think at the time when I made it, it was a good commentary on kind of like what is our bounty? Like
Yeah.
what do we prize? And it's all about like junk food or like not
Hmm.
like produce that's not super local. And I want to kind of bring it back and talk more about again, kind of like what is our bounty, but also like a lot of like the plastic packaging in our grocery stores and things like along those lines. And I'm not going to give away all my thoughts, but
No, no.
there's a few things I want to do that kind of take it to the next like conceptual level. So I'm
Nice.
kind of excited about that.
That's
And
great.
then so that's four that I've mentioned. I did a series called Men with Facial Hair. It's all about the the thing I can't grow, the one accessory I don't have access to.
Yeah.
I did a series called Teeth. It was all my own teeth. It was a self-portrait series, but I didn't want it just to be like a traditional self-portrait. I wanted to find a way to do a self-portrait that was totally different, and teeth
Oh,
are uniquely your own. So I did a whole series of teeth, and actually got a fair bit of like press the time when I did them. And it was amazing how many people I did like things like Queen West Art Crawl and Riverdale Art Walk in Toronto at the time, these outdoor art
yeah.
shows. And so many people were kind of like, I saw your painting in the newspaper, came to see it. And it's like, are you a dental hygienist? And I was like, no, I'm not. And then everyone would tell me about their teeth nightmares. I didn't even know
Oh
teeth nightmares were a
no.
thing. And now I have heard of so many of them where people like their anxiety dreams are essentially their teeth falling out or like chasing
Oh yeah.
them or like, oh my God,
Wow.
how terrifying. So anyway, I learned a lot about teeth that not even my own teeth. I have one called Skulls. Um, and it was actually like full skulls drawn with facial hair.
Okay.
Kind of like the idea of I had a lot of different work all about grief. I lost my dad when I was 19, and um, I kind of liked the idea of how other cultures deal with grief and the idea of like how they remember their loved ones, and
Yeah.
essentially how there can be a lot of joy in remembering people. And so I was kind of playing with the idea that maybe death isn't just all sad. And
Wow.
yeah, and then prior to that, the skull series came out of one called mandibles with facial hair because I was only doing the mandible, the jaw, and the
Oh,
teeth,
yeah.
and those had facial hair. They were kind of funny. I did a whole series called Ears. It was just drawings of people's ears. I was just kind of maybe I was into an anatomy kick. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, and then did I do any other series? I think when I came out of university, I had a bit of a backlash against the conceptual and just like did a bunch of birch tree paintings and stuff because I
Yeah.
went up into the Kawarthas up north into cottage country and was just like, it's so beautiful. I'll paint this. And I was also just trying to figure out what to do, like what kind of art I
Yeah.
wanted to make. And so I started making some of that work. And I was doing a lot of painting because I understood that people value painting maybe in a different way than it has a certain cachet that drawing doesn't. I think
Yeah, yeah,
drawing's kind of come up through the ranks a fair bit over the years, but oil painting just comes with a cachet, and people
yeah,
often put a different price tag on it. So I wanted to be a painter for that reason, and then I was like,
yeah,
it's not my place. That's not what I want to
yeah.
do. I want to draw. And so I learned quickly that that's what I wanted to do with myself.
Nice.
And yeah, also realized I didn't just want to paint trees forever, like birch trees and stuff. I
Not that
really
there's anything wrong with it, but yeah.
nothing wrong with it at all. It was actually like my mom still has all those paintings, and every time I go to her house, she's like, I stare at them every day. I'm like, that's great, mom. I actually really like the paintings I made. But
Yeah,
I realized pretty quickly that's what just wasn't the right avenue for me. So
yeah,
um yeah, it's so I don't know that I had a series there, but it was starting to look like the starts of one. And then
yeah,
um and then I've done a lot of commissions over the years. So
yeah.
yeah, I what was that? Maybe like 8 or 9 different series I've done over the years.
Nice,
I don't think I
nice.
missed any. Oh, I had one, it's very brief, maybe like 4 drawings in total, but I had
Yeah.
a reactionary mini series to the men with facial hair, and it was myself, self-portraits, traditional self-portraits of me,
Yeah.
and then I sharpied mustaches onto my face.
Nice.
That was really tough. That was a really interesting project because my work takes so long and is so detailed.
Yeah.
And then to just take a Sharpie and draw on top of it. It was actually an exercise in me letting go of the control.
Okay.
And it I can't even tell you how much time I hovered the Sharpie over the page before I finally drew a
Really?
mustache on myself.
Uh,
Yeah, it's like recovering perfectionist here, you know?
yeah.
Yeah. hmm
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you feel as an artist it's important, like a lot of your, I think most of your collections have either a story to tell or something to say? Is
hmm
that is that important to you with your art specifically, to say something with it, or can you just like
So
make art for fun just to
I
make art?
I wonder about this sometimes because
Yeah.
I don't know actually because I'm like
Mm.
sometimes I wonder I'm like is this a hangover from university where I just feel like I have to have a commentary on everything
Yeah.
and have a collection of work that speaks to a certain message or something along those lines. But then anytime I've started to move away from it, I always come back. So
Yeah.
I think it's me. I think I'm the one driving like the commentaries. And I
Yeah.
really like I think art's a lovely thing because it really can connect people. It can change ideas. It can create commentaries. It can change the way we see things and perceive things. So
Yeah.
I think I actually really like having the commentaries in the different
Nice.
series or bodies of work that I make. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think all that stuff's important. I also like, you're putting beauty out in the world, which is needed like every day, right?
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
I know
Yeah.
Brian struggles with that, with like, what am I doing? What's the point of this? And I'm like, look, at the end of the day, you made like this beautiful stuff that exists in the world now that didn't exist
hmm
before. That's incredible to me, at
Yeah.
least. I find that
Yeah. And
amazing.
it's an interesting idea because I've always struggled too with the idea of like making a lot of art because sometimes worry about the environmental impact of art as well. Like just the idea of
Yeah.
like just making all these things that you are selling because we're also somewhat treating art as a commodity, like it's part of our
Yeah.
consumerist world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there's a soul to art as well. So I think
Yeah.
even though it's not the necessity in a survival sense, like we need food, we need a roof over our heads, we need water, like
Yeah.
those things we can't live without essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even though art it can be considered a frivolous purchase, I also think it is a bit of a necessary purchase because it is something that just kind of like fuels and feeds us as well. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes I think people don't realize how important art or the arts are in general.
Hmm.
Um, but I think we'd really notice if they went away.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
big time.
big time. Like if you just suddenly music didn't exist and dancing didn't exist, like imagine a world without that. How
Yeah,
sad would that be?
I don't want to. That's horrible.
Yeah. Like, oh man. Yeah. So I definitely, even though sometimes I struggle with the idea of I'm creating and putting things out into the world and not just upcycling items, even though I try to,
Hmm.
where I can, upcycle frames and things to lessen my impact, like my environmental impact or
Yep,
footprint. I think just making art's really important. I think it needs to exist. So yeah.
I completely agree.
Hmm.
Um, have you noticed any differences in your process since moving to Hamilton at all?
I moved away from commissions a fair bit. I have
Mm,
really reduced how many commissions I make, and a big part of that is my cost of living.
yep,
So it changed, my cost of living changed pretty drastically moving here away from
yeah.
Toronto. So um, I needed the commissions to pay for, to
Pay for
live.
life in
Yeah, to
Toronto.
pay for
Yeah,
life. And when I moved here, just those costs were so significantly less. And I was able to really start to refocus in on my own work and work that
yeah,
I kind of was starting many, many years ago and just didn't have time to put into it and
yeah.
kind of let go for a long time. And these ideas have like stuck with me and festered and been like, you didn't, finish us, please finish us. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I've had a lot of time to think and a lot of time to even like reshape the ideas and grow
Yeah,
them. And um yeah, and I think like I've really gotten back into showing with galleries, which I haven't done for many, many years because I was mostly making commissions.
right, yeah,
And that's an interesting world to be a part of again and to network with other artists and to have the time to network with other artists because I'm not working a full-time job
right.
outside of art. And yeah, I think that's been really cool. And it's opening up doors like something I've always wanted to do and I've never had time to fully see to fruition is like a performative aspect to my work. So
Mm.
I have those ideas and they're still there and they're like let me out, let me happen. So
Yeah,
and when you start working with galleries and you enter a more conceptual space, that space really is conducive to those elements. So yeah, I'm
cool.
kind of excited to it won't happen immediately because I have to make the work first, but
Yeah.
I have some ideas for shows.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I always find it funny that like a lot of people, well, I don't know if a lot of people, but it seems like considering art a full-time, like it is a full-time job,
Oh
like what you're
yeah.
doing. Like you're like, I'm doing this without a full-time job. It's like, no, no, it is a full-time job. I'm always like,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm always seeing like, oh, you're in this gallery. Oh, now you're at this. This is great. She's at this event. This is awesome. She's busting her butt. But yeah,
yeah.
it is a full-time job
Oh, it
for
1000% is a
sure.
full-time job and it's become even more of a full-time job because
Yeah.
now social media is available to us and it's such a fabulous tool, but now you have to become your own marketing manager, social
Yeah.
media guru, I mean, you don't have to, but otherwise you have to pay a team of people to do it, which most artists
Yeah.
don't have the funds for, or
Mhm.
maybe you go old school and you're just off the internet. What? I mean,
Is that
I,
allowed?
I mean, there are days where I'm like, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I don't have to take
Mm.
video content. What? That'd be so cool. I could just sit and
Yeah.
draw. That'd be so nice. Um,
Yeah.
but I also kind of love social media in a way because I've also connected with artists all over the world that I wouldn't ever get to connect with, and I get to see art being made in all these different places and all their ideas,
Yeah.
and it's so inspiring. So I've also been really fortunate with my like my online community as well, and
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like you not only do you make the work and put all the time and training and everything into it, but you have to, I one of the biggest things is networking. So going to shows, meeting people, creating those connections locally, also creating those connections internationally if you can. Like
Yeah.
if you're interested in going that big,
Hmm.
looking after a website, looking after your social media pages, looking after, I don't know, even just the admin part of things, like writing an artist bio, writing an artist statement, writing for like show applications, writing
Yeah.
grants, which I still have never done. I should really do that. Um, they're a little intimidating because there's a lot,
Yeah.
and the rejection level is quite high. So to put
Yeah.
all that time and effort in, it's a tough one sometimes to
For sure.
bite the bullet. But that's one of my goals for this year is to
Nice.
actually apply to like residencies, retreats, shows, grants, just
Yeah.
apply. It's also really good
Yeah.
practice. Getting rejected, it's okay. Just might not be the right time, the right place, but now I've actually put the time and effort in and have a
Yeah.
template of what I can use for future applications. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, I think getting back to social media, that's the thing I struggle with most. I feel like pressure to be more of a content creator than
Mhm.
actually like a woodworker. And I hate that term, content creator.
Mhm.
I'm like, it is a valid occupation. I'm not going to
Yeah.
knock people that make a living doing it, but
Yeah.
it kind of like I love it for all the reasons you mentioned, like getting to connect with a lot of people, especially in the Hamilton community. I've met a
Mhm.
lot of people that I've never met in real life that were friends on the internet, which is great,
Yeah.
and their work is very inspiring. And I've talked to woodworkers I never thought I would ever get a chance to talk to. You know, like I met Nick Offerman because of Instagram. That's
Oh, that's
messed up.
really cool.
That is crazy to me. I still can't believe it. So I love it for those reasons. But I'm always in the back of my mind. There's always a part of my mind, like building this workbench, for example. I'm like, do I need to get the camera before I do this? And
Mhm.
like, what's a cool shot like that's gonna make people give a shit about what I'm
Yep.
making?
Mhm.
That's the part I hate because that takes me out of. I love just the making part,
Yeah.
but that's kind of like the business part that you have to do nowadays, and it's a
Yeah.
little frustrating. But
Mhm.
it is better than having to hire a bunch of people to do that stuff for you and pay for that,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, the fact that it's
Although
so
if you can afford it, I totally would.
oh man, it'd be kind of nice.
Yeah.
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 Definitely. But yeah, it's nice that it's so accessible, but at the same time, it does add a lot of work. It's like
Yeah.
just a whole new parameter of expectations. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Definitely. Um, do you have any bad habits when you're working? Like, just for example, for me, if I were to pan the camera just slightly over here, you would see just a pile of tools on a storage bin because I'm like, oh, I need a clamp, and I'll use it and then dump it over here. And
Hmm.
then like, oh, I need a hammer, and I'll grab that, done using it, leave it here. So I have this huge pile that I'm
Hmm.
always at the end of every project. Like I sorted all of that stuff before I started this, and now I've got to redo it all. Where it'd be so much easier if I just put it back when I was
Right.
done. Do you have anything like that? That any?
I think I'm a really tidy person just because I need it to be tidy to get work done. Otherwise, my brain is
Yeah.
exploding, going,
Mm.
what are you doing? I can't focus. There's too much.
Yeah.
Um, but I would say my bad habit is actually got an app that will let me keep track of my time, like how much time almost like a stopwatch for how much time I
Oh
put
yeah.
into my drawings.
Yeah.
And man, does it ever make a difference because when I'm using it, I start noticing because I'll stop it the moment I stop drawing.
Yeah.
But man, the number of times I'll pull out my phone and start scrolling, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I've been sitting there for 4 hours, but really I sat there for three and just
Yeah.
actually got work done, but a whole
Yeah.
hour got stuck in the social media vortex. And it often is because I'm pulling my phone out to get video content or something, and then I just get
Right.
stuck scrolling through things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I spent so much time at my drafting table. Mm-mm, no, I didn't. I was on my phone. Let's be honest. Yeah.
Nice. Can we touch on music for a brief second?
Yeah.
Because you're also very good at that. You're multi instrumentalist, and
Hmm.
I'm hoping that Paul will join us for one of these, and we can do a Dog is Blue episode. That would be fun.
Yeah.
So I don't want to use all the material up here, but yeah. What was the first instrument you learned, and how old were you?
Saxophone. How old are you in grade 7? Like 12, I think?
11 or 12? Yeah,
11 or 12, something like that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so when we had to pick an instrument, I ended up with the alto sax. And there were a
Hmm.
few reasons behind it. A,
Okay.
I wanted what I considered a cool instrument. In my 11-year-old brain, I was like
Can't get
trumpet,
cooler than the
saxophone,
alto sax.
or drums, I think. I think
Nice.
those were my the ones I wanted if I had the choice.
Yeah.
And then actually, so many people wanted to play saxophone, and there were two available in our school. And so we all had to put our names in a hat, and they were drawn out of the hat. And I happened
Really
to get chosen. So,
nice.
woo, yay.
Was meant to be.
Yeah. And then the other reason I chose the saxophone, I actually have really short fingers. And so playing things like piano or like guitar, they're really hard for me because I
Yeah.
can only reach so far. So
I feel like I have short fingers too.
yeah, I
I'm the
have like
same with guitar. It's like
super short fingers. Bar chords, hardest thing in the world for me. Um, so the saxophone, everything was within reach, which is really cool.
right. Nice.
Um, yeah, and then okay, can I pause really quickly? I
Of
just
course you
got
can.
a notification that my phone battery is going to die.
Okay.
So I'm curious to know. I just have a really old phone, so the battery only lasts so long. If I plug in, I have to unplug my headphones and my microphone. Is that a
Okay.
problem?
I
Or
don't think
like,
so.
it's okay if I just talk to you through my phone's microphone?
Yeah,
Okay. So I'm just going to switch that really quickly. Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. There we go. Awesome. So back to music. So yes, I played saxophone. And I actually played it all the way through what no longer exists, OAC, grade 13 in Ontario.
Oh yes.
I was one
Good
of the
old
last,
OACs.
yeah, I think I was like the second last year to get OAC in Ontario before they,
Oh yeah.
oh, nobody else does grade 13. Let's get rid of
Yeah.
it. And
What a
let's show the rest
ripoff.
of the world. Um, so I actually played all the way through high school. And I think at one point, maybe like midway through high school, I associated more as a musician than as an artist.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was really heavily into it. I loved playing.
Nice.
I do some choir and stuff in school too. Again, I don't know. I got really lucky. I had like some of the best music teachers.
Yeah.
I don't know what was happening at my high school. I had great math teachers. I had great English teachers. I just got the luck of the draw because I
That's
don't know where
awesome.
these teachers came from. So, they make a big difference in how you do in school, I guess.
For
Uh,
sure.
yeah. So anyway, I learned some really cool singing techniques in high school. Played a lot of saxophone. And then we had a piano. I think we got my grandparents' piano partway through high school for me. So I
Yeah.
just started like fiddling around. And my mom knew how to play piano, so she's like, "If you have any questions, ask me. But your fingers are
Nice.
really short; they're the same size as mine, so no point putting you in classes because you can
Good
only
luck
go so
playing
far anyway."
chords.
Yeah. She's like, "You can't go past an octave. They need you to pass grade six in piano." And I was like, "Okay." So I wasn't super interested anyway in piano lessons.
Yeah.
So I just started playing on my own for fun, like Disney songs and things.
Yeah.
And then I picked up a guitar probably in university. It was the first time
Nice.
I ever picked up a guitar and I started learning and I really enjoyed it. And then I started getting past all the like the beginner chords, D,
Yeah.
C, F, or whatever. And then I was like started getting into bar chords. I was like, man, this is really hard. And then I never really went further. So
Did you
yeah,
pick up the guitar after you met Paul, or was that before?
before. Oh,
Nice.
it was a little, no, it was university. But yes, it was before I met Paul. Sorry. Just
Oh,
trying to
okay.
work out that timeline in my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For context, Paul's a very good guitar player as well
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
singer.
He's awesome. He's really good. And he's mostly self-taught. Um, so I find his like the way he picks, like finger picking. I
Yeah.
don't know. I've never heard another person finger pick the way he does. And I think it's just because it's completely self-taught. So there's no
Nice.
specific structure to it. Like there's no tradition in the way he does it, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
cool.
That
Mhm.
is very cool. When did the idea of the band formulate with you guys? Was that pretty early on, or?
So when I first met Paul, he wouldn't play in front of me. He was like, wait, he was so gun shy. He was like, nope,
Really?
can't play. I'm like a closeted guitarist. And I was like, okay. And, but he writes pretty amazing songs.
Yep.
Um, I am not a songwriter. That is not my skill set.
No.
I am at best a performer. So that's kind of my level of musicianship.
Okay.
And, um, yeah, he would write all these really cool songs, and then he'd get up for like an open mic at school, and then he started working for a music company, and we were gonna travel out to a big music festival called Sappy Fest in Sackville, New Brunswick,
Okay.
and we didn't have a car. We wanted to get there, and he'd met some musicians through this job he had, and they said, well, if you're happy to come on tour with us and help us pay for gas money, you can come with us. So I said, okay,
Nice.
we'll get a tour of the East Coast. We'll go to all these shows
Yeah.
and end up at the music festival at the end. And then, so we got to know them pretty well. And one of them became pregnant. And the next year, she said to Paul, I want to go on tour with the band, but I'm going to have a baby, 6-month-old baby, and I can't get in the car, like a van with 13 other smelly musicians with a 6-month baby. So she's like, I need to essentially do a side by side convoy with them, and I need to be able to pay for gas. And she said, you have always wanted to play music and you write songs. This is your time. Do you want to come with me? Like,
Wow.
she's like, I will set up a separate tour that follows alongside the other tour, and you can play with me on this like separate tour.
Nice.
And if you want to record some music before you go, or just have the songs ready and get ready to perform. And
Wow.
so it kind of put him into gear. I was just going to go along for the ride.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, I've got X number of months. I'm going to record an album. I'm like, that's really cool. So he was recording at home. And at the time I was working at a coffee shop and I had really early morning shifts. And he would wake me up. I'd go to bed early. He'd wake me up sometimes just to do some ooze in the background. And then right before we were about ready to go, he looked at me and he said, so I think I recorded too many instruments and I can't play them all live by myself. And you're coming anyway. So do you kind of want to just like be my band for this tour?
Nice.
And that's how I became half of Dog is Blue. It was never meant to be both of us. It was just meant to be him.
Wow.
And
Nice.
then I kind of became the band. I'm like that like you said, the multi-instrumentalist, like keyboard,
Yeah.
vocals, had a glockenspiel for a while, got shaker, kick
Nice.
drum. At one point in time, he really tried to throw in a sequencer. And I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
whoa, buddy, like, I don't know what rhythm you think I have left. I don't have any more. And he's like, no, it'll be fine. It'll be totally good. And we did one show with it and it
Yeah.
bombed. I was
Oh
like,
no.
I told you. I had no capacity. I'm maxed.
Damn it, Paul.
He never gave me a sequencer ever again. So,
Nice. Nice. Do you have a favorite gig that you remember?
ooh, favorite gig. We shoot, what was our last one that we did? I remember having really good, like warm, fuzzy feelings about it.
Oh yeah.
Where the heck were we? Basically, we haven't played much in the last number of
No.
years. Part of that's the pandemic.
Hmm.
Also, a big part of that is me just being really, really busy as an artist.
Yeah.
And um, we haven't made any official ideas or plans because I think the band can be as fluid as we want it to be. But at
Yeah.
the moment, I don't have time to play music. I'm again in the process of maybe streamlining a bit more. So Paul's gone way more electronic with his music endeavors,
Yeah.
more solo.
Mm-hmm.
I miss it. I do miss it, but
Yeah.
I also art's winning basically.
Nice.
If they're in a competition, art's winning. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, I think it's my first love. So
Nice.
um, but yeah, we had a couple shows right towards the end, and they were house shows.
Yeah.
And there's something so magical about an intimate setting and space and playing for an audience that actually wants to be there to hear your music and is
Yeah.
there for the music. Although it's kind of fun sometimes too when you're playing a big show and maybe people aren't there for the music, but they get into it and they're like, "Oh, this is
Yeah.
pretty fun."
Oh.
Um, but yeah, it was yeah, we've had a couple house shows towards the end of us play, not the end of us playing, but like the last few shows we did were house
Yeah.
shows.
Yeah.
And wow, did they just come with a level of magic that is so beautiful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, you
Do you?
almost play those shows and you're like, I don't want to play again. That was too nice. If I play again, I'm
Yeah.
gonna ruin the memory.
Yeah. 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 Leave on a high note.
Exactly.
Do you find there's similarities in being on stage performing music and being like presenting your work at like an art show? Like if it's your art opening?
Um, actually, it's very different, I find.
Yeah.
Because when you're on stage, there's no getting, I mean, unless maybe you wear a costume or something, there's no real getting around the fact that it's you. You're the performer. This is what you're doing,
Right.
and you have a certain personality
Yep.
that you come to the stage with. And
Hmm.
there's also a certain level of adrenaline rush. Like the the number of shows that we have bombed is impressive, and but it's fun. It's live music, and you start to learn to like you roll with it. I think
Yeah.
sometimes how you recover is more important than whether or not you messed up.
Absolutely.
But sometimes
Yeah.
that's a long lesson to learn too. So,
Yep.
uh, but when you're an artist, uh, you can attend your own art show, and people might not know you're the artist.
That's true.
So you can kind of be a fly on the wall if you want to.
Yeah.
You can also be a giant personality and be like, hey, I'm the artist. Come welcome.
Yeah. Someone introduce me. I'm
Yes,
here.
yes. Oh, darling, you need to connect with this person. Let me show you the artist. Yeah. Yeah. So I think it all depends on your personality. And I've done both. I've been at shows and said hi to everybody and been like, thanks so much for coming. And then I've also been at shows and just kind of held back
Yeah.
almost as though I'm a viewer, just because it's kind of you get the unfiltered opinions of people.
Right.
And it's kind of, I like both options.
Yeah.
Art is way more insular, I find, because I don't work with a collective or a group or any, it's like I make my own work. I do very few collaborations.
Yeah.
And so when I'm in my studio, it's me with the audiobooks.
Yep.
And then I mean the most FaceTime I get is mostly going to shows and networking and seeing other artists, and I love that part actually. I'm a
Yeah.
relatively extroverted person, so
Yeah.
I enjoy the networking a lot.
Nice.
But yeah, no, it's very different than being a musician. I
Yeah.
find personally.
Yeah. Cool. So to bring it back to art,
Mhm.
you and I are both going to be part of a book that's coming out soon,
Yeah.
called Homemade Hamilton, and it's like a photo book by local photographer and artist Ian Pettigrew. Um, this is the sequel to Handmade Hamilton, which he put out
Mhm.
last year or 2 years ago. Um,
Yeah. I think
and
it
that
was
one
last year.
was, yeah, I think it was last year.
It was last year. Yeah.
So that one was all about people who work with their hands and do things. Whereas this one, he opened it up a little more to small businesses, people who are are making things here in Hamilton.
Mhm.
So what does it mean to you to be included in a project like that?
I mean, first of all, Ian is an amazing photographer, and
Yes, he
like
is.
sent me some of the photos he took of me, and I was like, "Whoa, buddy, these are great. That's amazing.
I
Thank
know.
you for making me look really good. That's
Yeah,
awesome."
same.
Uh, yeah. So I don't know. It's the biggest thing I've found since moving to Hamilton is just like the arts community here has been so welcoming and receiving and warm in general
Yeah.
and across the arts too, not just visual arts, like
Yep.
everywhere. Everybody's just been so great. And there's such a caliber of creatives in this city. And
Hmm.
I don't know, it's really cool to be included in that. I really, I appreciate being next to these people. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Same. Same. Yeah. So I'll leave a link in the show notes. There's a GoFundMe page set up to where you can pre-order the book and help support it. So hopefully tons of people do it. I think it's just great to get like Hamilton. I love that the book isn't only available in Hamilton, but it's
Yeah.
going to reach other cities and provinces, hopefully across Canada, and see like the cool shit we have going on here.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's kind of a cool capsule of this moment in time, like who was making, who was shaking, who's, you
yeah,
know, and
that is true too.
it's presented in such a beautiful format. So,
Yeah, yeah, it really is. Yeah, I'm the same. Like the photos, I don't like posing for photos ever, and so I
Mhm.
was so nervous about the process. That was really like giving me like legit anxiety. And then I got there, and he's just like, we're just chatting, and he's just snapping away as we're chatting and stuff,
Yeah.
and it was so comfortable. And then I
Yeah.
got the photos, and I'm like, who is that? That is crazy. I was like, I look like I know what I'm doing. That's amazing. I got really excited.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
he took some, yeah, and it was quick too. Like it didn't even take that long to like the photo shoot itself was maybe half an hour, a bit more, I don't know, but like
Yeah.
it got so many great shots. I'm like, this is awesome, man. That's
Yeah.
very cool. So,
Yeah. He was so open too about like, if there's something you don't like, just let me know, like
yeah.
he obviously doesn't want to like airbrush you like a magazine or something, but he was very empathetic to like, if you're not cool with something, let me know, no worries. But
Oh,
I also like the fact that we don't know what the photo is he's going to use in the final book.
I know, I'm so curious.
Yeah, me too. I can think of like two or three in my head that I'm like, I hope it's one of those, because I
Hmm.
remember those being fun to take. But yeah, anyways, I'll leave links in the show notes, and hopefully some people who listen to this will go out and support it. Um, are there any plans to make a sequel to the award-winning Laura Heaney infomercial from maybe 15 years ago or so?
Oh God. Uh,
LH Designs? Le Designs?
oh, that one? Oh, what?
Yeah.
How did you find that?
I do my homework.
Oh, wow. That was so my sister went to Mohawk College for broadcasting and journalism, I think was the program.
Okay.
So her primary focus was to learn to be a video editor. And so she had to make all these videos, and one was to make an infomercial. And she co-opted my mom and I to make this video with her. And we made it all around my art, and we were kind of hamming up the idea of like the elitism of art and making it more accessible. And so we called it like Le Designs will come to you. You can have Le Designs in your home.
For three
Oh my
easy
God.
payments of
Right?
1669.
I don't know if you can tell my family is full of hams.
Yeah.
So yeah, oh man, I can't believe you saw that. I can't believe that's still on or wherever it exists. I don't even know where it exists, but
It's on YouTube.
it's on YouTube.
I might link to it in the show notes. We'll see.
I love that.
How many berets did you have to go through till you found that perfect one?
I don't know. I don't even know where that came from, if I'm being honest. I don't think I've ever owned a beret. So maybe my
Nice.
sister went out and bought it for me so I could really, again, just lean into like all the tropes of an artist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so funny. I loved it.
Oh my God. I can't believe you found that.
I was so happy when I found it. I was like going back through your Instagram and stuff just for like see if I could pull out anything from way back. And I'm like, there's some really good stuff in here.
Oh man.
I'll just search the internet and see what I can find for a few minutes. And I found that in like 5 minutes. And I'm like, oh yes, this is
Okay.
gold.
Well, it's funny. I never changed my name when I got married, and this is obviously part of the reason because if I changed my name, you'd never find it. So,
Right.
I mean, nobody else has the name Heaney, so I'm pretty easy to
This
find
is
on the
true.
internet.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. Made me so happy. I may have watched it 4 or 5 times in a row.
I
And
just
by
really
may, I
love.
definitely did.
I loved my mom playing the dowdy housewife, like down on her
Oh,
luck. Life's hard. Her life isn't beautiful. And we had it
yep.
with like we drew in like crow's feet and stuff. We gave her extra little gray hair, and we even gave her like a fake cigarette. And what
Yeah.
was really funny because she was meant to like spit the cigarette out and just be kind of like hacking up a lung, and then the cigarette just like stuck to her lip. It like was too dry, and then she's like trying to like hack it up, but the cigarette's just stuck to her mouth throughout all of it. And I think it's in the video. I think
uh,
that's the fake we kept.
yeah.
Uh,
It reminded me of, do you remember like the kids show, Canadian television kids shows we used to watch as a kid where they would always make up like younger women to look like old ladies
oh
in
yeah.
some scenes and stuff? That's what it reminded me of. And I was like, this is
Oh
so awesome.
oh yeah. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what it's supposed to be. It's just meant to be as like tropey and
Yeah.
brutal as possible.
It succeeded. It's so good. So good.
Oh my
Le
God.
Designs. I recommend everyone look it up.
Yeah.
Uh,
One of my
all
proudest
right.
moments.
Yeah, it should be. It absolutely should be.
Yeah, because I am not an actor. I have learned that over the years. I'm really bad at acting.
I don't know. I think it was wonderful. So good. All right, so I got a few like wrapping up questions.
Sure.
Do you have any advice that you would give to someone starting out in art or want considering it? Anything you would
I think my biggest piece of advice would be to attend as many shows as possible. And even if you're introverted, network. Like,
nice.
make time for it because like, you can be the most talented artist, but if nobody knows who you are, your art just might sit in your house in your basement. I mean, this is specifically if you want to, like, get your work
Pursue
out
this
there,
as
sell
yeah,
it. Like, if you just want to make art for the sake of art, sit in your studio space, dark corner, whatever it is, and like do you.
just make
That's
it. Yeah.
fine. Just make it. But mostly, yeah, just get out there and network. And it's also amazing too, like even if I go to shows and don't meet people, just seeing other people's work and their ideas, it sparks so much creativity in myself. I'm like, oh, that's
Yeah.
a cool idea, or I never would have thought to use that medium, or and maybe I never paint on vellum or something ever.
Mhm.
Maybe that'll never be me. But now I've seen it and I've seen what it can do, and it's really cool. And it's made me think of other things and other ways I can make art in different ways, or I don't know. Just it
Yeah.
inspires. So, but
Nice.
networking. Oh man, I had to learn. It took me a while to figure that one out, and because I
Yeah.
was like, I'm busy. I don't have time. I'll just make art. Hey, I did network for many years, and now I've started networking. I'm like, oh my God, it's so necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's the best advice you've been given?
network.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to take that advice.
Yeah.
Oh God, I should have listened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. What would you say is your proudest achievement or thing you're most proud of that you've made or
Yeah.
even done?
So I was thinking about this, and when you're in the heat of it, you're just making work, making work, making work, and you're getting it done, meeting deadlines. Sometimes you don't really take the time to actually appreciate what you've accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sometimes it's easy to be like, oh, I didn't get into this show. That's, that didn't work out, or this didn't work out for me for whatever reason. But
Yeah.
what I actually started doing in the last couple of years is I have these check-ins with Paul and another friend of ours, and she's a poet. Paul usually checks in about whatever creative endeavor he's doing, whether it's visual art, music, writing. Paul's a jack of all trades. He does everything.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
he can talk himself up in his own podcast.
3D
And
printing now.
yeah, 3D printing, oh, just pick this up on the internet. No big deal. I'm an expert in days. Um, that's his MO. He's like, oh, I just learned to build guitar pedals off the YouTube video. And I'm like, really? Okay.
You're infuriating, Paul.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Wow.
Be
Okay.
bad at something.
Yeah. Just be good at everything. Sure. Um. So anyway, but what both Paul and I have worked in the corporate worlds at certain moments in our life, and the biggest thing we decided to take away from that was uh almost like weekly sprint meetings. And we don't always do it weekly. Sometimes you just got to take time off and come back to it. But we
Yeah.
always try to catch up, whether it's every other week, every month, every 6 months. But essentially, we meet up and we say, these are our goals. So we might do like, what do we want our year to look like? Or what do we actually just want to do? Like,
Mm,
I want to be an artist. So what do I need to do to achieve that other than just making
yeah.
art? And then you start breaking it down. Like, what's your 1 year goal? What's your weekly goal? What's your to-do list? Like those kinds of things. And then you
Mm-hmm.
start to end up in what you call weekly sprint, which is essentially like, what did I accomplish last week? What did I not accomplish last week? And then even if I didn't accomplish it, should I have? Was it worthwhile? Were the wins worthwhile? And then what does my next week's to-do list look like? And
Cool.
what I did, because 2023 was very busy for me. I had a lot of stuff going on. I had so many deadlines, and it got to the point like by the time I hit January, February of this year, I was like, oh man, I am tired. But I signed myself up for it because every
Yeah.
opportunity was so amazing. I was like, I'm going to be burnt out, but it is going to be worthwhile. Because every time I
Mm,
took something else on, it was like, this is the intentionality part. I was like, is it worth it? Is it worth it for me to take this on and add to my plate? And every time the answer was yes,
mm,
because the opportunities were so fantastic. So, hey, I'm super proud of myself just for asking if it was worth it. And then
nice.
also, I ended up doing a year-end review just for myself, but I brought it up at the meeting. And essentially, I said, hey guys, so I did a year-end review because I realized I haven't taken any time to even like process how much I've
Mm,
done and how many firsts that I've had and like just in the last year. So, for instance, I received my biggest commission ever. I ended up doing a big drawing for the LCBO Food and Drink magazine for their 30th
mm-hmm.
anniversary. It was a massive, massive commission for me anyway. And to work with a brand and a company on that level was just really, really cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was like the next level kind of moment. So that was really cool for me. I also had my very first art show in a gallery where they paid me Carfax fees. And Carfax, I don't exactly remember what the acronym stands for, but it's almost like unionized artist fees that you
Oh,
get
okay.
with like a public space. So maybe a government building or a library or
Oh,
certain galleries that are government funded. Um,
okay.
so even though I didn't sell any work at that show, I was paid to show my work at that show, which is pretty
Nice.
cool. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's kind of awesome. I also had my very first show virtually. Like I had a virtual art gallery show
Oh,
through
cool.
Women United Art Movement online. So they put up my screen time series in their virtual gallery, and I was like, this is unbelievable. So it was my first international show. Like
Nice.
it first solo international show that was virtual. It's like, what? This
Wow.
is, uh, it is the future. So
Yeah.
that was really cool. And I feel like there are a couple other things. I think also just like the number of pieces I made. I think I even counted them. It's like how much did I actually make? Because my stuff takes a really long time. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I actually wrote
Yeah.
it down. Here it is. I made 17 new pieces last year. 17 new drawings
Wow.
and a couple paintings. And
Holy cow.
like to give an example, like that LCBO drawing alone, it was a 2 foot by 3 foot drawing, so 24 by 36 inches, and
Yeah.
it took me 200 hours to make that.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that's an example of how long some of my pieces take to make. And
Yeah.
to think that I made 17 last year while also living a life and I don't know, probably, like eating and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Sleeping
feeding
and
myself,
yeah.
sleeping, all
Yeah.
these things, doing the admin side, doing the social media, doing all these other things, networking. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a really,
That's
really big
amazing.
year for me last year. And I think what was so cool about it, uh, oh, I did my first retreat. Sorry, that's another one I
Oh,
forgot. I worked with Cabinscape. They're a small company in Ontario where they have these like eco-friendly tiny cabins that they've put out throughout Southern Ontario. And
okay.
they have started doing calls in the spring for artists and it doesn't have to be a visual art. It could be any kind of art, music, art, dancing, jewelry making, writing. But essentially what they do is they put out a call and you apply. And if have any work that you make related to nature, uh, you can go, they'll give you a 2 night stay for free in one of their cabins. You just get to pick which one based on its availability in the springtime. And you go to the cabin and you make your art. And then you
Oh,
post about it online.
that's
So
amazing.
you're doing some advertising for them, which is really cool. It's so smart too, on their
Yeah.
end. They're like, yeah, come to our space, be creative. You can do that as well. And they are both visual artists, the people who are started this company. So obviously
Okay.
they love the arts.
Yeah.
And yeah, but it also creates this really cool narrative of all these people across all these artistic creative genres
Yeah.
creating in nature. And it's really beautiful. So
That's
anyway, I got to be
incredible.
part of that last year, which was really cool too. So that was my first retreat that I've ever done. And yeah, I also had my first show in Toronto for the first time in years in a gallery space. So that was
Oh,
another
yeah.
kind of like callback. It was like one of my goals. I was like, I have to do one show gallery. So anyway, but yeah, so I think like 2023 for me was a really big year, and that's a pretty cool accomplishment. But specifically taking the time to notice it and just like feel good about it, like be able to sit and feel
Yeah.
good about it. And also just kind of recognize like I've put in the time and I've put in the effort, and oh my God, it's happening. Like it's actually
Yeah.
happening. Like art
Yeah. That's
career.
fantastic.
Like it's kind of cool to see it actually coming
For
through.
sure. It's very well deserved too. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it
So
feels like it's
cool.
been a long, weird road.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy I stuck with it. So
Nice. That's
mhm.
amazing. Um, it's hard to imagine something that you haven't tried yet, but is there any whether it's a medium or an art style or something that you haven't yet tried that you want to?
Yeah, I think the main one, I mentioned it briefly before, is I really want to learn to make my own inks and paint
Right.
from like foraging.
Yeah.
I want to be able to go out and like make charcoal or find rocks that I can crush down, or maybe I make inks that aren't light fast. Light fast means it has an archival quality, which means it can last for hundreds, if not thousands of years, essentially.
Yeah.
But if you're making something from organic matter, like a leaf or a flower, the likelihood of the sun not dulling its pigments is very unlikely. So
Mm.
maybe I'm getting into, if I'm starting to make my own inks from organic matter, maybe I have to make art that has its own lifespan. And that's
Mm.
actually part of the art, is it's art that
That's cool.
lasts for more than 50 to 100 years, or maybe even like a couple of years. Maybe it's meant to have an evolution, and that's part of the
Yeah.
art. So
Ooh.
I have to learn to become a chemist to do this. I follow a couple people on Instagram. Oh, I might get this wrong. I think it's Joanna Green Art is the main
Okay.
account I follow. I think she's in like Pacific Northwest in the States, like
Okay.
Portland or Oregon or somewhere like that.
Hmm.
Um, she's amazing. She even has a book. I think she's made it a digital book and you can get it for free. Like
Ooh.
this woman's unreal. But anyway, I keep following everything she's doing and I'm like, she's so inspiring. And I'm just so interested. I've like lightly dabbled in this world, but now I want to like this is what I want to do some art retreats for. I want time to actually learn to do this. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Very cool.
so that's one of the things I want to move toward is like sustainability within my art practice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, that's it for my questions.
Cool.
Thank you so much for chatting with me. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, and I really appreciate you
Thanks for
taking
having
your
me.
time.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah,
mean, like
my pleasure.
I'm a huge fan of everything you make and do, so I really appreciate being asked to be a part of this.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. So where can people follow your work?
Oh yeah, that's a good place to leave it.
Yeah.
Right, how to find me. The easiest place is me on Instagram because that's where I post the most.
Hmm.
So it's my initials LK and then my last name Heaney. So it's just at LK Heaney. And
Hmm.
then otherwise, that's my handle for all my social media channels if
Yeah.
you're looking for me elsewhere. And otherwise, my website, lauraheaney.com. That's it.
Cool. I'll link to those in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
Do you have any art up in real life that people can go see
I
currently?
do. I have two shows on right now. I think one's going to come down really soon. So anyway, they're both actually out in Prince Edward County. I've been spending a lot of time out there this summer.
Hmm.
And sort of for anybody not super familiar with Ontario, out towards like Belleville, Kingston area. And so there's a restaurant. Actually, they're both restaurants that have my series up. So one is called Sand and Pearl, and I have my Nauticus painting series up there every year. And this is my 8th year now. It's almost like an artist residency in a way.
Nice.
So I come back every year and put my art up there, and it just happened that I had a nautically inspired art series, and it's a seafood restaurant. So
Nice.
it suits the space very, very well, and it's really, really, really fun kind of fish shack sort of space where you can get a fish and chips or seafood tower and bottle of Chablis. Totally up to you. And then the other series is my Observing Green series, the landscape climate change one that I mentioned. And that
Yep.
series is currently in a place called Black Cloud Bodega, which is this amazing sandwich shop in Milford, Ontario. So, which is in Prince Edward County, I should say, but
Hmm.
that's the little town that's in. Oh, and I should say Sand and Pearls in Westlake, Ontario, so just south of Bloomfield, and again in Prince Edward County. And then so Black Cloud Bodega, it's this new sandwich shop. I think this is its first summer that it's been open, and yeah, it's the sandwiches are unreal. They're massive. They're so good. And then he's in the chef that owns it. He is in this sort of old building, and it kind of looks like a very old, almost like an old apothecary sort of style space.
Okay.
And my Observing Green drawings are black and white pen and inks of sort of
Hmm.
landscapes, and they're done in upcycled frames that I've painted, all painted gray, a matte gray. And when I hung them in that space, actually, the moment he was like, "I have blank walls. Do you want to put anything up?" I was like, "Oh my god, I have the perfect series for this space." And now I'm a
Nice.
little obsessed, and I'm really sad. I think this week or next week I'll probably be taking them down.
Oh
But
no.
time for them to move on to somewhere else. But at the same time, a part of me is like, but I want them to stay there forever because
They
they
were
look
made
so
for
perfect.
this place.
Yeah. So those are the two shows that are currently happening. I don't, and then the next big one that will be coming is Art Circuit in Hamilton. It's
Mm-hmm.
October 4th. It's a Friday night. And Art Circuit's a really cool, I think it's happened previously in previous years. And then the pandemic, nothing really happened. And then a couple different gallery owners and artists brought it back to life last year. So I'm almost
Cool.
saying like last year was year one based on the
Yeah.
people who are running it now.
Mm-hmm.
And what it is essentially different galleries throughout the city. There were 4 last year and there are 4 this year. Are putting on shows at the same time. And what happens is you can buy a bus ticket, and the buses is kind of like a hop on, hop off bus system, and they'll
Yeah.
take you from gallery to gallery. So you can see all the different shows because they're not in the same neighborhood in Hamilton. So you get to go
Yeah.
to these different neighborhoods, see these different shows. I think right now the early bird tickets for the buses are $40 until September 7th. And then I think they go up to $50 after that. And the bus tickets allow you to get into the Art Gallery of Hamilton, where the opening reception is taking place, and one of the shows as well. I mean, you can go in to see the show, but you can't get into the opening reception without the bus
Right.
ticket. And then I think the bus tickets also get you like preferred pricing on art and the Art Gallery of Hamilton's gift shop. I think you get a drink ticket to use at one of the shows. I think there's also bus hosts, like we have like realtors and I think like Instagram personalities, people like that, like people who will be on. There'll be a different person on each bus, kind of like chatting with you, telling you about Hamilton, essentially entertaining you,
That's
and
awesome.
can answer questions too about shows. And then yeah, so I've submitted some work to have in one of the shows right now, and I'm also working as their community ambassador. So it's kind of
Nice.
I'm kind of like a behind the scenes, help out with social media stuff kind of
Because you
person.
don't have enough to do already.
It's kind of fun. Actually, because Paul said the same thing. He's like, "Why are you doing like, do you have time?" I was, no, it's good. It's actually, if
It's great
anything,
that you're doing
it
it.
connects me with even more people and more artists.
Yeah.
I'm really
Yeah.
excited to just like, I know a lot of artists in Hamilton already, but some of them are just acquaintances. And
Right.
now I'll actually get to have some like one-on-one time with them. Once the jurying's finished and we know exactly who's in which show,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go and do some features on some people, and so I'm kind of excited to go and meet
Nice.
everybody and get to see their studios and see what they're working.
Yeah.
So
Very
yeah,
cool.
Art Circuit in Hamilton, October 4th. That's the next show I'll be a part of. And
Okay.
then I haven't planned for anything else, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. I
No.
half the time I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do any shows this year. I'm going to take the year off and just do admin work. Oh God, that's not how this works.
Nice. Well, I look forward to those shows.
Well, thank you.
And yeah, thank you again for chatting with me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's been
My
fun.
pleasure. Yeah. Anytime. And we'll get Paul on this next time. And we'll do a music themed one. Dog
Yeah,
is Blue.
absolutely.
Amazing.
Well, thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this, and huge thanks to Laura Heaney for chatting with me and hanging out for a while. Please look up Ian Pettigrew's book, Homemade Hamilton. The GoFundMe link is in the show notes. It's a very cool project that deserves your attention. That's it for this episode. If you would like to learn more or even contact me to be on a future episode, head over to woodbeard.ca/podcast. Till next time, hope you all are doing well. Bye.